Welcome to the Mike Litton Experience Podcast. Mike has over 31 years experience in real estate, finance, and investing. He's passionate about being a father, a teacher, a realtor, an investor, and a leader. Everyone has a story, and our passion is to help them tell it. And now, introducing the host of the Mike Litton Experience, Mike Litton.
So what can you expect from the Mike Litton Experience? You can expect stories that will inspire, motivate, advice that will sharpen your focus, and expert information on real estate, finance, and market conditions. Every single day. And the child had already been threatened in vitro, right? The kicking of the stomach thing, right? I mean, that had to have put you in a place where you're just like, what now? You know, and notwithstanding all the other things, because we have two kids of our own. We have a 23-year-old and a 25-year-old. And I remember my wife, after each child was born, just grappling with these emotions and grappling with how sad, you know, and it was just like, especially after the second one, it was really rough. When after our youngest was born, she couldn't stop crying, and there was just no way to, you know, I obviously don't know what you know, and so I'm, you know, what in the world do I say? You know what I mean? It's like all I knew how to do was hug her and tell her I was sorry, you know. And my mother-in-law was amazing. She just like interrupted the whole thing and said, "You need to go to work. I'll put her back together. You go to work." I'm like, wow, right? What an amazing woman. I married up when I married into that family, right? I mean, that has just got to be that. So a lot of this has prepared you for today. So a lot of this has prepared you to be in private practice, sit with these people, with your patients, and help them through, and even working in the VA, right? I mean, all this that you went through, sort of the gauntlet, so to speak, of emotions and you know, personal security and, you know, all this kind of stuff, right? At risk this whole time, really prepared you at a very high level to then work with our veterans. So going to work at VA, go ahead.
I think that's something I do pride myself on, is that I can hear any story, any trauma that our military experienced, and I can still hold it with them and be there with them and process it.
Yeah,
And
that's
I
just
don't,
amazing.
yeah, I don't run away. And now I largely work with firemen and police, and I can hold their stories too, when most stories they don't even tell their wives, because they
Yeah,
don't want to burden them with the gruesome details.
yeah, yeah. I can't even imagine. I mean, there was a time when I was considering getting into law enforcement, and I did a bunch of ride-alongs. I had a bunch of friends that were on the police force, local police force, that kind of thing, and um, it was amazing, unbelievable how much stress they go through. And it's, for them, it's like normal, right? It's just what they do every day. And for me, it was like, this is going to take some getting used to, you know. I mean, some of the things that some of these people would say to you when they were in cuffs and you were taking them to jail, and I mean, it boggles your mind, and we can't even talk about it on this program, right? That's how unbelievably unsettling it is. So you how long were you at VA?
5 or 6 years, I think.
Okay.
Yeah.
What was your favorite thing about working at the VA?
I had a lot of favorites. I loved the training, the level of training that the government provided its staff was incredible. Learning about psychological assessments and how to treat trauma. But I have to say, my absolute favorite was when a veteran would come in between 70 and 80 years old, and he would tell me a story that he's never told anyone in his whole life.
Yeah.
And he would have this sense of freedom, this feeling of release. of this pain he didn't know he had been carrying his whole life. And it's like we have body pain and then we get it fixed and we don't realize how much pain we were walking around with.
Hmm.
Even though the veterans in that particular clinic were in their 70s or 80s, they could really enjoy the rest of their lives free of the almost self-hatred they had, especially our Vietnam veterans.
Yeah. So
And yeah.
right after we were married, we've been married 30 years now as of last month. Right after we were married, the first year, my father-in-law retired from the Bureau of Prisons, of all places. He was a physician's assistant for 20 some years. And we were at his retirement party. And I didn't know anybody naturally because I had just joined the family, right? So I hadn't had a chance to meet anybody. So I'm there at the table and he's sitting at the head of the table and he's wearing a sport jacket, which he never wore. I never saw him in a sport jacket, right? And there's a lapel and there's a silver bar on the lapel. And he says, "Do you know what that is?" And I said, "No, sir, I don't." He said, "Well, that's the Silver Star." Okay. He said, "I was awarded that for, in Vietnam." And I said, "Wow, okay, right. I didn't know. I had no idea my father-in-law was a war hero. He had also been awarded the Purple Heart in the same battle, right?" And so he tells me the story of what happened, right? They were on a patrol boat and these Marines were being ambushed and all this. And he saved a bunch of lives with a chaplain that worked in the Marine Corps, or naval chaplain, pardon me. And so he tells me the story. On the way home, my new wife says to me, "What were you and Dad huddling at the end of the table talking about earlier tonight?" And I said, "Well, he was telling me about how he earned, what happened that they awarded him the Silver Star and the Purple Heart." And she started crying. And I said, "Why are you crying?" And she said, "He's literally never said anything to anybody about Vietnam ever. He
Oh,
must really love you to feel comfortable enough to connect with you and share that with you." I'll bet that really was therapeutic for him. You know what I mean? And she's just like, she's crying, like, right?
yeah.
And I didn't realize how much impact it had had on her as a little girl and her brother that her dad never talked about.
Hmm.
They know that it's so painful to talk about that they just don't talk about it. And they carry that around and it feels like it's this big when it's inside you. But then when you let it out, they sort of sit back and they breathe for the first time in years, right? And they're like, "You know what? It doesn't feel as big now that I said it." And it's almost like they've been let out of jail. I mean,
Yeah.
it's wild, you know? Um, and from that point forward, he felt more comfortable about telling people about it, which was crazy. I mean, you know what I mean? It's just anyway, I happened to be the first person he told, and it was an honor, absolute honor.
It
Um,
is. It's an honor.
it's crazy, right? I can understand what you're saying. I mean, obviously, I didn't talk with him at the depth that you talked with these veterans, in session and things. But wow, so you're with the VA for 6 years. Then where do you go?
I started private practice and I started half of my week would be working with first responders. So that could be lawyers, doctors, firemen, police. And then half of my week became civil litigation and doing psychological batteries on plaintiffs or defendants that endured sexual abuse or that were being charged with sexual abuse. And what I still do today is I test for the validity or the truthfulness of their claims.
Wow.
And I testify in court and I offer the information to the judge and the jury. And hopefully we find the truth.
So you're an expert witness.
Yes.
So your job is to figure out whether they're telling the truth or not?
So although we can't use truth in the law, we can use validity and reliability of their credibility and content.
Okay. So is it a scale?
I administer a lot of different tests. I
Okay.
administer tests like the MMPI, which we've heard of, personality tests, lie detection tests, I do very thorough interviews, kind of how today is structured with you. We go through life, right?
Yeah.
And then I do a very comprehensive record review of school grades, education, anything medical, mental health, everything and anything I can get my hands on,
So like the full
collateral
sphere,
information.
the full, wow. Wow.
Mhm.
That's cool. So you started out, that was half of your week, and the other half of your week was working with first responders. Is that still the way it is, or has it changed?
There's a growing media presence now for me and speaking engagements. I wrote a book, and then my social media has been growing really quickly,
Mm.
and I'm going to start getting ready for a TEDx talk. So that's kind of, there's this growth area of using all this information to empower people to live their best lives.
So you're kind of transitioning.
I'd like to transition, but keep my favorite clients and still testify in
Mm.
court and still be that voice for people who need to be believed when they've been raped and no one is believing them.
I just love that. That is so cool. That is one of the coolest things you said all day. Okay, so let's talk about the book, because I love, love, love the fact that you wrote this book. It's something that I told you before we hit record. For over 3 decades, I've been espousing this, mostly because Tony Robbins suggested it to me, or to us, in a seminar, and I applied it. I went home and applied it. It took a while, but I applied it,
Yeah.
and I saw a noticeable, I mean, unbelievable change or transformation of my life, the quality of my life. And so, The Friend Cleanse is the name of the book. Talk about what it was that drove you to write the book. In other words, have you been thinking about this for a while? Was there something that happened that just you went, okay, I'm writing a book?
Both. Um,
Okay.
During COVID, I had a lot of clients who were happier
Mhm.
that they had this external permission to stay away from toxic people.
Right.
And I thought that was a bit striking that
Yeah.
they needed COVID to stop them from being around crappy people.
Yeah.
And then as COVID subsided, I guess you could say, I don't know, as we started to become more social, we
Mhm.
lost that external permission and we started jumping into social settings that we really don't like, that
Yeah.
don't build us up, that don't give us energy, that really just leave us quite drained. And so that's where I started thinking about the book. Like maybe the book can be somewhat of a journal and an exercise where we can say, okay, here are all our friends, family, even people working at Trader Joe's who get paid to talk to you. That
Mhm.
can be draining.
Yeah.
And how can we organize our life? How can we step back, organize our life, and maintain our energy?
Right.
And then I had this idea. I hired a graphic designer and we made this sphere on my website where you can drop your friends around the sphere and watch your energy go up or down.
Wow. I love
And
that.
it's a free little game. And it's nice to externalize your thoughts and empower yourself to say, I'm in charge of who's around me. I
Yeah.
don't have to say yes to everything. I don't have to feel guilty. I only get one life.
Yeah. And one of the things that we talk about a lot is whatever you let in, you're to blame for, right? It's your
Right.
fault. If you let it in, it's your fault. So we almost have to build up this sort of defense mechanism almost to we're where we not, I don't want to call it a shield, but it's a little like that, in that we're welcoming people that improve our lives, and we're jettisoning the people that sap our energy and make our lives, bring drama and make our lives, right. So one of the things that my children experienced growing up was they had no drama in our house. I wouldn't allow it. And so when they got older and they started spending time at other friends' houses, they'd come home and go, Dad, the drama is insane. These people, you wouldn't believe how these people live. And actually, I do because that's how I grew up, right? That's why I wouldn't allow it in our home. And both of our children are 23 and 25 have come to me independent of each other and thanked me for how we raised them,
Mhm.
because we raised them in a place where I just wasn't going to allow it. I wasn't going to allow this drama to take place that was going to sap their energy, right? And now my children are careful about who they have as friends, and they're listening to what we say about, you need to be selective. So
Yes.
I love the fact that you wrote this book. What was your favorite thing about writing it?
I think finally getting it out of my head and showing it to my loved ones, showing it to the people closest to me, and saying, I'm choosing you in my inner circle,
Yeah,
and you lift me up. And I know when I'm not in the room, you still celebrate me, and I
yeah,
celebrate you. And it became this. We were so excited all together for this to be published.
yeah. That is so cool. So let me ask you this. How did it feel when it was actually published? How did you feel?
I was excited, but there was trepidation for the critics and the haters, because as the book came out, my social media has climbed really high,
Yeah,
and the trolling and the negative comments have increased.
yeah,
So I also thought, am I going to be a target
yeah.
for the book? But
There's some
on the
vulnerability there,
there's major vulnerability that
because
I wasn't
you're
prepared
now
for.
out there, right? You're exposed.
Right. But at the same time, I can write that book because I have built myself from the inside out, and
Yeah,
I can lay out who I am. I don't care who picks at it. I am
yeah,
proud of myself, and my kids are proud of me, and I'm proud of them.
yeah.
And my husband is too.
I would say you're better equipped than just about anybody on the planet. I mean, I'm saying, because of your professional training and everything that you've been through in terms of your experience, and I mean, yeah, you're probably better equipped than just about anybody. But for you to feel that way is really human. That is authentic. That's legitimate, because it's, you did the level best you could, right? And this is your life out there. This is your product out there. I mean, you gotta have some trepidation. I would think that you're incredibly proud of it, though.
I am very proud of it. I'm still trying to grapple with, I don't have a company. This is just me.
Yeah,
I am the company, I am the brand,
right,
and the book is almost a business card. And it's a very strange concept for a psychologist who's never been trained in business.
right, right. Yeah, and it's, you know, I the I don't think we can quantify how many people you're going to help with this book. I mean, really. And
I hope
it's,
so.
I see this as people learning this skill to an extent, and this strategy for the very first time. But then I also see people that have known it, but they didn't have the courage, if you will, to implement it, because it's one thing to know it. It's something entirely different to implement it and enact it in your life, right? Because there's some difficult conversations you're going to be having with people, right? And
Yes.
some of it is going to be, I mean, it's, part of the reason that people keep going back to, like you were talking about with COVID, when those external limits were gone, they went back to those places that were detrimental to them, right? To those people that were detrimental to them, out of guilt more than anything else. And I've known people that have told me that if they have honest conversations with some of their friends, they're afraid they might lose some of their family in the process, and the person they're married to, and that kind of thing. And one of the things that I encourage them to do, and I'm no psychologist by any stretch of the imagination, I just play one on TV. No, I'm kidding. I'm just somebody who tries to help, right? And what I've done over the years is I've been coaching people, and what I've coached them on is, think about this for a second. If you're in a marriage where, if you get rid of some people that are sapping your energy, right? and bring in people that increase your energy and make you feel more alive and improve your life and your world, right? And you end up losing your spouse over it, it's not something you want to do. What you want to do is sit with your spouse and get buy-in. So sit with your spouse and say, look, I believe these people are a detriment. I believe these people are sapping our energy. These people are not helping us be happy. They're trying to keep us down where they are.
Mm-hmm.
You with me? That's what I did before I even got married. When we were in premarital counseling, I sat with my wife and I said, these people that are friends of yours, I don't want us spending time with. Now, these people I want to spend more time with, right? Right. But I want us to be selective in terms of, right. And what happened was she bought in to what I was saying, and we ended up moving the people that were detrimental. We moved them to the side, didn't spend time with them, that kind of thing. It wasn't pretty, right? They didn't take it well, but it was good. And eventually it got even better because things calmed down and everybody healed and everybody moved forward. So I'm so glad that you wrote this book. So is there anything that you want people to know about your book that they may not know?
It doesn't have to be done alone.
Yeah.
It can be done with a spouse, with a friend. It can be a group project. It can be a way to, it doesn't have to actually be any action, right?
Yeah.
You can step back and just think about these things,
Mm-hmm.
but honor yourself enough to think about it.
Yeah.
Give yourself that worth and that value to take time to build yourself up and know that you are important. And
if you don't love
choose
yourself, you're not going to be able to love everybody else, right? If you don't take care of you, how are you going to take care of the people you love and the people that you want to take care of? There's reason why when the oxygen masks drop on the airplane, you put yours on first, then you assist somebody.
And like we talked about earlier, when you remove the toxic energy from your life, you are so much more open to receive wonderful things, wonderful people, energy for your work, job, interests. It is amazing what changes when you simply rid the toxicity.
Yeah, I totally agree, because when you have toxicity in your life, you build a wall and you close off, right? When you get rid of that to any degree, when you get rid of that, you open up, because you don't have to have that wall anymore. It's not self-preservation anymore, right? And you're literally opening yourself up, and there's energy to just opening yourself up. It's amazing. It's absolutely amazing. And it can completely transform your life. Dr. Leslie Dobson, I had so much fun getting to know you today. I'm so glad that you were our guest today on the Mike Litton Experience. Thank you again for being here. I thoroughly enjoyed our time together.
Thank you for having me.
You're awesome. We hope you enjoyed another episode of the Mike Litton Experience. If you did, do us a favor, smash that subscribe button, tell your friends, family, and coworkers about our program, and wherever you get your podcasts, please leave us a rating. It helps us to connect with quality people just like you.
And that's a wrap. Another episode of the Mike Litton Experience in the books. Reach out to Mike on Instagram at Litton Realty. Want to meet with Mike? Check out calendly.com/Rio760.